every time your woman comes to you with the concern that she has with you, and you dismiss that concern, and you invalidate her thoughts, you invalidate her feelings, you invalidate her experience, you invalidate her concerns, you are slowly pushing her away, and eventually you are going to lose her. Don't forget, she's experiencing you. Okay? The side of you that you don't see, the side of you that everyone else doesn't see, she's experiencing you. The way you communicate with her more than likely may be different from the way you communicate with other people. The type of connection you have with her may be different from the connection you have with other people. Don't forget, she's seeing you from an objective standpoint. So instead of you invalidating her, maybe you should sit up and listen to her. Instead of you believing that you're Mr. Perfect and you're Mr. Always Right, you may want to listen to her and see what it is that you can fix before you end up losing that woman.
I genuinely adore this clip. But there's so much that needs to be discussed. So, where do we start? One of the first things that comes to mind is when she says, not validating her concerns, you're going to end up pushing her away ultimately. And see, to me, I think that's where a person can become very arrogant, because when you have a conversation and you convince someone or try to convince someone that what they're saying, what they're feeling, what they're thinking is somehow not valid, and they accept it, in your mind you feel you have conquered something, you have won. But let's be clear, men and women are different in how we handle things, even though we carry the same emotions. How those emotions are demonstrated vary depending on the gender. So if she's not being validated, she may get quiet. She may say she agrees. She may say she understands. But what she's really observing is your inability to listen, your inability to care, your inability to compromise, your inability to just give a little room to absorb her perspective so you know how she thinks, how she views the world, and who she is as a person. See, unfortunately, when we base most of our understanding around logic, we get rid of the things that we consider to be futile or the things that are purposeless in a conversation. But where we miss that is, and what we suffer from by missing that, is that the nuances and the courtesies that we create around conversation also build relationships. They build understanding. They build compatibility. They let you know key favorite things or do's and don'ts related to that person. If you eliminate small talk and purposeful, and purposeless conversation, you're eliminating a lot of your own knowledge, because unfortunately for the logical mind, that is where a woman talks the most. And you will learn the most about her in that space when she's telling you how complicated it was just to go to the store and get bread. During that story, she's going to tell you what frustrates her. She's going to tell you what aggravates her. She's going to tell you that she's impatient. She's going to tell you that she doesn't like to be confused because something confusing happened and it frustrated her. During those moments, you are getting a glimpse into her personality type. And even though you may be listening to the story saying, I really don't care, and all I want to know is, did you buy the bread? Get to the point. See, that makes sense because it's logical. But guess what? Even though it's logical and it makes sense, it's also unkind. It's also dismissive. It's also belittling. It also can be condescending. The fact that you just want to know the answer to your question and you don't want to know all the extra stuff that she wants to share. She is trying to give you a piece of her soul, a piece of her identity, a piece of her day, and also trying to incorporate who she is as a person so you can gather as much data as you can to get to know her better. See, when it comes to situations like this, men and women are very different. Women are expressive, whether it be on their face, in their body movements, or with the things they say. They are always transparent about how they're feeling in that moment. And if you can take the time to observe, to absorb, to understand, and then apply what you've collected to her and to the environment that you have her in, you will see a different woman. But unfortunately, we are in a place to where our own needs tend to come off as more important than our partner's needs. And when you think that you are qualified to tell your person what they need, what is important, what they should settle for, what they should sacrifice, what they should be willing to compromise. Essentially, you are looking to play both roles in the relationship, and you don't expect your partner to play their role at all. You just want to have a person there that follows these guidelines or follows these rules or follows this perspective or meets your expectation. But when you don't actually allow that person to be who they are, you're essentially suffocating them. You're closing the doors and the windows, and you're locking them, and you're telling them that any means of getting outside is impossible. And yes, she may stay for a while. Yes, she may still be nice. She still may be caring. She still may be nurturing. But ultimately, yes, you will push her away, because in that space, she doesn't feel heard. In that space, she feels invisible. In that space, she doesn't feel loved. And that's even if you are showering her with sweet nothings and gifts outside of that. This is one of the most important areas you can provide to a woman, is making sure she understands that she can talk to you about anything. She can be transparent with you. She can give you her heart and her soul. She can give you her pain. She can give you her sadness, and she should have enough confidence to know that when she gives you those things, you'll be receptive to them. You'll hear them. You'll process them, and then you'll handle her accordingly. You won't make her crazy. You won't gaslight. You won't manipulate. You won't change the subject. You won't deflect. You won't tell her she's overthinking and overanalyzing. You won't tell her that she's being emotional. You will be there for it. You will conversate with her. You will understand what she needs. And it's as simple as asking a question. Sometimes we have to take off the lens of arrogance and put on the lens of understanding and ask questions for clarity, because just because you have dated before, just because you've been out in the world before, just because nobody has told you what they do and don't like about you, or you think that they have, it doesn't mean you've heard everything. It doesn't mean that you know exactly who you are and what it's like to experience you. A key piece of what she said as well, as she's experiencing you. I find it outrageously hilarious that when you're in a relationship and a person is telling you what impression they get, what experience they have with you, a person will reject that sentiment and tell them that it isn't true. When in reality, if they're with you, if they're in relationship with you, they have an experience to give testament to. And it doesn't matter who you think you are. It doesn't matter what you think you've conveyed to them. None of that is relevant. When she's telling you about her experience, or when he's telling you about his experience, take it seriously, because they're observing you. They're collecting data on you. They know your patterns, your consistencies and inconsistency as it relates to them. It doesn't matter who else you're better for. It doesn't matter who you do and don't argue with. It doesn't matter who does or doesn't test you, who is transparent and who's not, who's honest with you and who's not. What matters in this conversation is their perception of you, because this is the person you're having a dialogue with, and they have an experience of their own, and you don't get to filter that out because of the things that you proclaim you do or don't want to hear. You have to listen. It will be respectful to listen. It will be loving to listen, because ultimately all she wants is to be heard and understood. And if you can't have enough patience and love and common courtesy to give her that, then where should she know you love her? Within gifts, material things, within showing her off, within making sure she's dressed beautiful? No, beloved. It's in your consistency with how you treat her. Everything outside of that is just gravy. But people want to be treated right. They want to know that when they speak, you will listen, that you find their voice just as important and important in your life as you view your own. You shouldn't create a world that you wouldn't want to exist in for anybody. So remember that you're not the only one in this relationship. It's a team. So be a team. Peace.